As the stone steps of the federal courthouse slowly filled with chants and tattered flags flapping in the wind, she walked between two rows of agents, each step as heavy as lead bullets. People raised banners with bold black letters, "Traitor." A child held up another sign, "She saved my cousin." And in the center, silent, stood Amara Collins, 40 years old, deep brown skin, head held, high wrists in shackles. The media called her the traitor in uniform, but to those who had witnessed the truth, she was the first and only woman in U.S. Navy SEAL history to be nominated for the Medal of Honor after saving 37 lives in an operation that officially never existed. Now the ceremony of honor had been replaced by an indictment. "Hang that bitch. Some colored girl thinking she's a damn hero." Someone shouted from the crowd, the sharp voice of a middle-aged man wearing a Patriot First cap. Amara didn't flinch. She was used to words like that. She'd been used to them since childhood on the south side of Chicago, back when she earned a military scholarship only to be told by a teacher black girls should go into nursing. She stood in the courthouse lobby, cameras flashing so brightly they burned her eyes. But her gaze did not waver. It was as steady as the barrel of the rifle she once sighted through, as firm as the oath she had sworn 19 years ago: protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The court called her name. "Defendant Lieutenant Commander Amara Collins, please step forward." She walked each step marked by the metallic clatter of her cuffs. A whisper drifted from the press row. "I thought she'd be in dress blues, not an orange jumpsuit." In the third row, Camille Hart, a young Department of Justice agent, frowned. She was the only person of color in the room, and the only one who noticed. Why wasn't a single high-ranking Navy officer there to represent Amara at trial? No uniform, no medals. No one was standing to defend her. Only her skin, her history, and the charge of betraying the nation. The judge asked for a plea. Amara remained silent. "I ask the defendant a third time, Mrs. Collins, do you plead guilty or not guilty?" She looked directly into the judge's eyes. Not a tremor, not a single tear. Then, a loud noise. The courtroom doors flew open. A man in full military uniform, chest gleaming with medals, walked in. His expression was solemn, and in that moment, the entire courtroom fell silent. Camille whispered under her breath, "Someone just poured ice water over the whole system." The room still hadn't regained its rhythm. The man who had entered was Admiral Walter Shaw, commander of Naval Special Forces, a living legend at the Pentagon. But he didn't walk toward the prosecutor, didn't face the jury. He walked straight toward Amara. Their eyes met. No words were spoken. But something shifted. The air was taut as a drawn string. The Admiral gave a subtle nod, an unspoken pledge. Amara tilted her head slightly. For the first time since she'd been cuffed, her shoulders eased just a little. The judge called for a 30-minute recess, and while the room erupted with speculation over the surprise appearance, Amara stood still, quiet eyes gazing into the distance as if she were somewhere far beyond those four walls. 2 years earlier, Afghanistan, a nameless desert, temperature 110 degrees. The wind cut through the throat like tiny blades of sand. Through her scope, Amara Collins stared at a clay compound nestled between 3 ridgelines. To the untrained eye, it looked like an abandoned rest stop, but Amara knew better. This was the target of the classified operation called Obsidian Pulse, a mission whose whole truth was known only to her and Admiral Shaw. "Bravo team, position check." Ready at Eastgate Collins came Mike Simmons's voice. Charlie Team North perimeter, awaiting orders. Jackson Taylor confirmed. Good, no one fires. Observe record and pull out, Amara emphasized. But inside her gut stirred. Something was off. Collins' movement at the south entrance said Sergeant Barrett Kane acting recon support. Visual unclear. Looks like civilians. Amara's grip tightened around her rifle. Her thermal scope began to light up with unfamiliar heat signatures clustered, shivering, unmoving. Not soldiers. Not in formation. She repositioned, crawling up a rocky ledge to peer through the eastern building's window. Her heart nearly stopped. Children. Women. Older men. Vacant eyes. Emaciated bodies. Some were chained to the walls, some with medical devices embedded into their skin. Kane confirmed. Civilians. A lot of them. White, Asian, indigenous, too. This isn't a base, Amara whispered, though no one could hear her. This is a detention camp. She activated her encrypted transmitter. Obsidian calling Lighthouse Station, Priority Alpha, Lighthouse online. Go ahead. I confirm the target facility is holding unauthorized civilian detainees. Large number. Evidence of biomedical experimentation. Requesting immediate extraction. Silence. Then denied. Continue surveillance. Do not engage unless ordered. You're kidding. Command directive. No withdrawal. No interference. End transmission. The voice on the other end cut the connection cold final. Amara removed the earpiece, looked again through the scope. A little girl was curled in the corner of the room. Her arm was bandaged. A needle wound still bled. Amara clenched her M110. Simmons Taylor. New orders. This is a rescue. No longer recon. The hell, Simmons yelled. Override it. On-site command is assuming responsibility. I'll take the fallout. You'll go to prison, Amara. Then so be it. But that child isn't dying for politics. The SEAL teams began moving under the cover of night. Kane, meanwhile, quietly slipped a satellite phone from his pocket and sent a single message. Obsidian compromised. SEAL team breaching. Neutralize immediately. The compound descended into hell as the firefight erupted. But she didn't yet know the worst was still to come, and the traitor was right beside her. The first explosion echoed at 2:00 a.m. Mike Simmons' Bravo team detonated a series of distraction charges in the northern sector, pulling the guards away. Screams, gunfire, and flames lit up the Afghan night sky. Amara Collins and Barrett Kane advanced toward the main entrance of the eastern building, the one where civilians were being held. Cover my six. Amara ordered her suppressed rifle trained on the door. 2 guards fell without a sound. Amara dropped to one knee, fingers working swiftly across the electronic control panel. The door slid open, and the stench slammed into her. The air reeked of dried blood, antiseptic, and despair. 37 people, including at least 9 children, were huddled together like wild animals recoiling from the light. A middle-aged Asian man whispered in broken English, "Please, don't retake us." Amara knelt beside him and gently touched his shoulder. "I'm a U.S. Navy SEAL. I'm taking you home." His eyes lit up. A child sobbed. Another little girl, thin as a twig, wrapped her arms around Amara from behind like she was the last lifeline in a sea of death. As Amara called Charlie Team for medevac support, she heard the door creak open behind her. Kane stood there, but this time his rifle wasn't pointed outward. It was aimed at her. "Drop the drive," he said, voice flat like a drill command. What the hell are you doing? I can't let you take that data out. Not while... We still have contracts. We Black Forge. They pay twice what the Navy does, and they're not bound by silly ethics. Amara slowly stood, eyes locked on Kane's weapon. So all the times you called me Big Sis Chief, that was fake, not fake. I respect you, but I respect my family more. They're being held in Pakistan. If I don't comply, they die. You should have told me. I've rescued people from worse. No, you're a woman. You're black. You don't have the power to save anyone in this system. The last line sliced like a blade, but it didn't weaken her. It sharpened her. The moment he raised the rifle, Amara swept low, slamming his wrist, sending the weapon flying. The two of them clashed in hand-to-hand combat within the cramped room, surrounded by panicked patients. Kane was bigger and stronger, but Amara was faster and smarter. She'd taken down enemies in Somali brush and run rooftops in Mosul. She knew how to drop a man without a sound. And this time, the one on the floor was Kane. Blood dripped from his nose. Amara, bruised lips split, rose, securing the drive to her vest. Bravo, Charlie, new orders. Kane has turned. Treat him as hostile. Above them, rotor blades thumped like the sound of death approaching armed helicopters without national insignia. The ground shook. Black Forge was coming. Amara shouted evac now. Move civilians to the rally point, stay in clusters. She turned and saw a little brown-skinned girl frozen in the courtyard, flames and smoke swirling around her. She was trembling, petrified. Without thinking, Amara ran. Forget the orders, forget the drive, forget her life. She sprinted through a collapsing wall past a crate of ammunition about to explode. The girl looked up just as Amara scooped her into her arms. A shell exploded less than 5 meters away. Amara turned her body, shielding the child. Agonizing pain, blinding smoke. But the child, she was alive. What's your name? Farah. Hold on to me, Farah. We're almost home. The final helicopter lifted off. Below the compound, burned evidence, dreams, and promises turned to ash in the night. Over the radio, Mike Simmons whispered, Command's not going to spare you, Amara. It's fine, she replied, gazing at Farah asleep in her arms, her cheek smudged with ash. If I go to prison for not leaving that child behind, I'll accept that. The courtroom was as cold as a moonless night. Every stare sliced like a razor, not because of what was being tried, but because of who stood trial. A 40-year-old black woman, once a SEAL legend, now in an orange jumpsuit. Amara stood alone. No private attorney, just a white prosecutor with a voice like ice and a gallery of people measuring her through prejudices older than the Constitution. Your Honor began. Prosecutor Gavin Mercer. Lieutenant Commander Collins unilaterally altered the mission parameters of a classified operation, caused damage to national assets, breached international security, and most importantly, disclosed top-secret intelligence without authorization. That is the definition of treason. He looked toward the jury, pausing deliberately when his gaze landed on a black woman in the back row. We are not here to judge emotions. We are here to judge actions. No one, no matter who they are, stands above the law, not even a hero of color. The final line was deliberate, a dagger hidden behind a polished business card. Amara didn't react, but in the back, DOJ agent Camille Hart clenched her jaw. She'd heard those words all her life. She knew how power used identity as a blade. After the recess, Amara was led to a holding cell. flickering lights, mildew in the air. The cuffs still pressed her wrists like accusations that wouldn't let go. The door opened. Admiral Walter Shaw entered. No guards, no protocol, just an older man who once believed in the system and now wasn't so sure. "You holding up?" "You should ask that of the 7-year-old I held in the firestorm." "Admiral, I tried to halt the base's destruction order, but they moved too fast. And now, can you stop this?" "Not yet. But I can drop a truth bomb big enough to make the court listen." Amara met his gaze. "Do you believe me?" "I believe what I saw in the footage and in the soldier who risked her life to save 37 people when everyone else stayed silent. Then, help me survive this battle." Meanwhile, across the city in a cramped apartment, Eli Chen, former NSA cryptographer, sat hunched over 3 monitors. Lines of code scrolled endlessly. Passwords, proxies, firewalls. He was breaking into what was known as Ghost Protocol, a string of shadow programs no one admitted existed and no one was allowed to see. Sweat ran down his face. His eyes locked on the screen. Access granted level Omega. Director override. Eli's hand trembled. He had breached the system of the International Security Bureau, the one holding Amara Collins. At the DOJ, Camille Hart received a message from Eli. She grabbed her phone and opened the first attachment. A video played. It was Amara's body cam from the rescue night. She dragged a bound woman from a pitch-dark room, blood spilling from her shoulder. She cradled an unconscious baby, calling in vain for medics. She shielded a group of children as a wall collapsed around them. And at the end, Amara looked straight into the camera, coughing, whispering, "If I don't make it, please get the kids home." Camille sat in stunned silence. She didn't betray the country. The country betrayed her. Back at the courthouse, whispers spread like fire down the hallway. Admiral Shaw's about to release classified files. There's a video no one's seen. This isn't just a trial anymore. And in the darkness of her isolation cell, Amara felt something new surge through her. No more fear. No more isolation. Only a plan. Born not from medals or rank, but from ordinary people who had seen the unforgivable. And now they were going to make the world see it too. In a dimly lit conference room at the Department of Defense, amber lights cast long shadows across tense faces. They were all people of power, the Secretary of Defense representatives from the CIA, NSA, and OIS. And standing among them like a fragment that didn't fit the frame was Admiral Walter Shaw, both hands gripping an old leather briefcase. Admiral Shaw, the secretary, began his tone weighty. "You've interfered with a military tribunal, presented unauthorized evidence, and are threatening the stability of national security." Shaw didn't respond immediately. He placed the briefcase on the table. "You summoned me out of fear, not principle." He opened the case. Inside was the original uncut video from Operation Obsidian Pulse. There were voices, flames, children crying, and footage of Amara Collins moving through the smoke, leading each child out of hell. One clip brought the room to stillness. "They're human beings, not training targets, not biological experiments." Amara's voice was choked yet firm. "I couldn't stand by. I'm not that kind of soldier." Elsewhere in Washington, Camille Hart entered the live studio of a national news network. Stage lights cast a hard glow on her composed face, slight smile and eyes heavy with restrained fury. The anchor hesitated. "You're a federal agent. Are you sure you want to do this?" "When justice is locked behind security doors, sometimes the public must become the jury." Camille replied. And the broadcast began. Back at the federal courthouse, Amara sat in the waiting room, her eyes still bruised from the fight with Kane, faint scars at her wrists from the cuffs. The door burst open. Fared Nazari, the interpreter who had accompanied her on the night of the rescue, stepped in. His clothes were bruised and torn, evidence of the ambush Black Forge tried to stage as a mere armed robbery. Ms. Collins. Fared. I thought they tried to stop me, but someone stood outside my door all night. A small brown woman. I think you know her. Camille Amara whispered. Her lips curled into the faintest smile. In the next session, the entire courtroom felt a distinct difference. The judge seemed tired. Prosecutor Mercer is no longer smug, and the audience didn't stare with suspicion but expectation. Fared took the witness stand. His voice was steady, his pronunciation clear, his eyes unwavering. She didn't break orders. She broke the silence. I've interpreted for U.S. soldiers for 12 years. No one's looked at a child injected with drugs the way she did, and no one's ever called me teammate without emphasizing foreigner, except her. Then came Simmons and Taylor, two former teammates, unannounced. They stood before the court dressed in civilian suits, but their voices still bore the cadence of soldiers. We once swore loyalty to the nation. That nation isn't a council hiding the truth. Amara Collins saved my life. Not just once. If she's a traitor, then maybe I should be in that defendant's seat too. Just as justice seemed to tip in Amara's favor, Dalton Barrett Kane was brought in cuffed, flanked by two guards. The courtroom froze. Mercer pressed on, lips tight. Mr. Dalton, for the record, did Ms. Collins break orders? Dalton gave a thin smile, eyes fixed on Amara. Yes, she disobeyed orders. Orders to abandon the innocent. Orders to turn a blind eye to atrocity. And I betrayed her. Gasps echoed. Mercer turned pale. The judge said nothing. I worked for Black Forge. Dalton continued. They promised to protect my family if I reported which SEAL teams were getting too close to their operations. When Amara chose to save lives, I called Black Forge. I was the one who directed the missile strike on civilians. His eyes welled up. I don't deserve to call her commander. But I know if she can forgive, it's because she holds something this system lacks: humanity. Amara said nothing. She nodded, softly. But it was the final gesture of dignity. She didn't need to punch walls, didn't need to scream for justice. She had earned it word by word from those who once stayed silent. The courtroom doors had barely closed behind the not guilty verdict when the heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. Boots, uniform black, no insignia. Each step crushed the hope that had just sparked. A federal tactical team stormed in. At the front, a white woman with platinum hair, dark suit, and gleaming gold badge, Director Evelyn Krell, Office of International Security. Her voice cut like a blade. This court no longer has jurisdiction. Lieutenant Commander Amara Collins will be taken into custody under Article 1949 of the Black Security Act. Charge high treason. The courtroom erupted. Amara's attorney objected. The judge banged the gavel again and again. Krell didn't stop. We act under direct orders from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Ms. Collins is a national security threat. Camille Hart shot to her feet, DOJ badge raised high. You're violating the civil rights of a U.S. citizen who was just acquitted. Krell sneered like swatting a low-level staffer. And who are you to obstruct national security? Ms. Hart. But Amara silenced the chaos. She raised her hand unprompted. I'll go. No one needs to bleed in this room. She turned to Camille, voice clear. Don't let me disappear. Two agents moved forward. One cuffed her again, the other placed a gentle hand on her shoulder not out of cruelty, but because this shame was colder than violence. As she was led out, Amara looked back. Faird gripped his prayer beads. Simmons clenched his jaw, and Camille, her eyes blazed. She didn't cry. She remembered. The place was called the Hollow. It wasn't on any map, no signs, no legal trace. An underground compound beneath an abandoned quarry in Maryland, converted to detain internal risks, those who knew too much. Amara was placed in a 6-meter square isolation cell, a steel bed. Sync 1 camera. No window, no name. Sleep tight, Commander, said the guard, locking the door without waiting for a reply. Amara stood still, eyes unblinking. But inside her memories cracked open into questions. Why now? Why just after the acquittal? Who is Krell really? And why does this feel like that night again when the rescue was denied? Inside a secure building near the Pentagon, Camille Hart entered Admiral Shaw's private briefing room, a USB in hand. This is everything Eli and I pulled from OIS. Ghost Protocol folder. All illicit projects spanning 7 countries. Shaw stared at the images flashing on-screen, videos of injections into civilians. Medical files showing deletion markers, photos of the dead from experiments. Financial reports from Black Forge Solutions, the private contractor paid to conduct the research. God, Shaw whispered. I commanded an operation, not knowing I was paving the road for war crimes. Camille looked up. We need to go public. They won't stop while they remain faceless. Meanwhile, in her cell, Amara sat upright on the steel bed, hands folded on her lap. She didn't sleep. I wasn't allowed to sleep. She was remembering every detail, every face, every trembling eye of those she saved, and the cold, ashen gaze of Barrett Kane before he betrayed her. They think you'll stay silent, Amara, she told herself. But they forgot. You have nothing left to lose. Outside, Camille, Admiral Shaw, and Eli Chen were beginning to rewrite history by revealing the truth. And from the Hollow, Amara Collins was preparing to turn her prison into a beacon. Dawn rose slowly over Washington, D.C. that day, as if even the sun hesitated to shine upon a nation trembling before the truth. Inside a safe house on the outskirts of the city, Camille Hart spread thick stacks of documents across the table. Each page was a wound. Each signature is a drop of blood. Eli Chen, visibly thinner after nearly 72 hours without sleep, handed her another hard drive. This folder is the key, Eli rasped. It contains footage from the Ghost Protocol facilities, including the transfer video of Amara to the Hollow. Camille frowned. Is there real-time data in there? Yes. And something else. Eli hesitated. A thread of correspondence between Director Evelyn Krell and someone with the code name Apollo. She opened the first email. The content was chillingly brief. Glasshouse Protocol activated. No witnesses, no archives. Eliminate vectors. Camille froze. Glasshouse. This wasn't a program. It was a purge of people and evidence. They don't just want Amara. They want every witness erased. Including me. Including you. Elsewhere in the country, Senator Clayton Rourke, architect of countless national security bills, entered Director Krell's office. Light from the window fell across her ice-cold face. Rourke held a cup of coffee he had never drunk. "We have a problem." "No, we have a solution," Krell replied, not even glancing up. She slid a proposal across the table. "Draft for the revised Homeland Security Act. Any individual disclosing classified information, even for whistleblowing, may be criminally prosecuted. No exceptions. You're using policy to legalize a gag order. You call it gagging. I call it damage control." Rourke glared. "What if they release the footage?" "We call it fake. A deep fake. A foreign cyber attack. We've done it before, and the public always believes the first thing they hear, not the last true thing." But this time, they underestimated one woman. That night, Camille Hart appeared live on national television. No face mask, no fake name, just the DOJ badge on her chest and the poise of someone who had touched darkness and chose not to bow. "I'm Agent Camille Hart, U.S., Department of Justice, and I'm here to tell the truth about someone named Amara Collins." The entire broadcast aired live. Footage from Amara's body cam. The cries of children in the dark. The bio-injections. The scream, "Don't leave us behind." And then, Amara shields a child with her own body. She didn't betray this country. Camille said, her voice breaking. She saved it, with every ounce of conscience. The powerful forgot. Inside the hollow, a night guard sat eating while live streaming on his phone. When the woman he'd been guarding appeared on screen, he froze. Oh my God. He looked up at the steel door. Inside, Amara sat upright, eyes closed, as if hearing it all. At the chief judge's home, an unmarked envelope slid under the door. Inside, a handwritten letter and a USB. The writing was firm, urgent. "I don't need forgiveness. I need to be heard. My name is Amara Collins, and this is the whole truth about Operation Obsidian Pulse." Immediately after the broadcast, had Free Amara shot to the top of national trends. Veterans, medics, even mothers of enlisted children spoke out in unison. A massive wave of justice, colorless, apolitical, had begun to rise. And in the White House, the lights stayed on all night. An emergency meeting had been convened. Admiral Shaw was present. Camille had been invited. The president placed a hand on the folder, his expression grave. "I can't undo the past, but I can stop the future from repeating it." "Start by getting her out of there," Camille said. "Now." The president nodded, then signed the order. Special Directive: Immediate release of Lieutenant Commander Amara Collins by order of the Commander-in-Chief, and suspension of all operations at the Hollow. A military helicopter lifted off the White House roof. On board, Camille held the signed release and a resolve beyond doubt. She knew this wasn't over. But this time, Amara Collins would not be alone. When the cell door opened, the first light in 4 days poured across Amara's face. Standing before her was Camille Hart, holding the official release stamped with the presidential seal. Flanking her were 2 Secret Service agents in crisp white shirts, weapons concealed, but every step bearing the weight of a national decision. "We have to leave immediately," Camille said. "They know," Amara asked, voice hoarse but steady. "The whole world knows." They traveled in an armored SUV through the cold Maryland suburbs. Amara stared out the bulletproof window as scenery blurred by like curtains. no one recognizing the woman just freed from where law ceased to exist. "Krell won't stay silent," Amara said. "She's silent, not gone," Camille replied. "And she's not alone." In a shadowy conference room beneath Black Forge Solutions HQ Director Evelyn Krell, Senator Clayton Rourke, and CEO Mitchell Drake watched drone footage from a covert recon cam. The drone had just captured Amara and Camille as they planned their next move. "They're moving the witnesses offshore," Krell said coldly. "They'll take it to the UN." Drake scoffed. "Let's see how many they can get there alive." Rourke cut in patience, spent. "We've come too far to let one black woman bring down an empire." Meanwhile, at a secret base near Baltimore Airport, Amara, Camille, Admiral Shaw, and survivors of Obsidian Pulse were preparing for a private charter flight. 17 people. Each bore a wound, physical, emotional, or both. Farah, the girl Amara once saved, is now 9 and lives with her Canadian adoptive family. But upon learning she would testify, she wrote a letter in trembling handwriting. "If I tell the truth, you won't get retaken, right?" Amara folded the letter and placed it in her left breast pocket, near the heart. As the plane prepared to taxi, a black SUV tore onto the tarmac, kicking up clouds of dust. Camille leapt out. "We've been compromised. They know we're here. An OIS tactical team is en route." "How long?" "Less than 10 minutes. Admiral Shaw gave a sharp command. "Get the witnesses on board. Tell the pilot to take off even if I'm not on it." Amara shook her head. "I stay. I'm the excuse they need. If I'm on that plane, they'll fire." "No," Camille said. "If you don't get on, they win. They turn you into a symbol but never let you live long enough to testify." Amara looked at the witnesses, boarding eyes locked on hers. One more step, no turning back, but the one that had to be taken. She nodded. As the plane lifted off, an OIS helicopter closed in. But no missiles, no warnings. Because on global screens, a live stream from Eli Chen, recovering in a hospital after a failed assassination, was already playing. "My name is Eli Chen. I was an NSA code analyst, and this is the data from Ghost Protocol." He streamed hundreds of files, documents, and videos. Names, money trails, lab sites, death tolls, and a final line: "If I die, you'll lose the evidence. If I live, the world will see." At the United Nations, an emergency session was convened. On the giant screen, the plane carrying the 17 witnesses of Operation Obsidian Pulse entering Swiss airspace. Delegates spoke one after another. The U.S. must explain. "This is a humanitarian crime. We demand a special tribunal." On board, Farah gripped Amara's hand. "Are you scared?" Amara stared out the window. The sky ahead was black, but for the first time it wasn't hopeless. "Yes, but I've been more afraid and I survived. Fear doesn't stop us. Silence does." On the ground, Krell watched the radar screen as the plane passed beyond missile range. She turned to Rourke. "They made it. And now the world is watching." Rourke growled, "Then turn the lights off." But the lights no longer belonged to them. And in the first light over Geneva, as Amara Collins prepared to take the witness stand, the story of the soldier betrayed was no longer just America's story. Main conference room, United Nations, Geneva. The hall was as still as a lake caught in a breathless wind. Every seat was filled, yet every eye seemed fixed on one point: the black woman in full U.S. military dress uniform, rows of medals gleaming on her left chest, yet it was her gaze that silenced the world. Amara Collins, age 40, former Navy SEAL, acquitted, then rearrested, now no longer a defendant, but a witness. The head of the hearing, a silver-haired woman from the Human Rights Commission, nodded gently. Lieutenant Commander Collins, we are ready to receive your testimony. Please speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Amara nodded. She didn't look at the documents, didn't glance at the recorders. She lifted her head, exhaled slowly, and spoke. Operation Obsidian Pulse was launched under the guise of domestic surveillance. But its true goal was to cover up a nameless prison in a land the world had long stopped watching. I saw children injected with experimental drugs. I heard the screams of women being forced into surgery without anesthesia. I touched the hand of a man who died in chains, and I still remember the cold of his skin through my gloves. I was ordered not to intervene. I disobeyed. Still silence. She looked directly at the U.S. delegates, seated quietly behind a table draped in the national flag. I once swore allegiance to the Constitution of the United States, but that Constitution never taught me to abandon anyone. When I carried a child from a burning room, I wasn't thinking about being black or being SEAL. I thought if I turn away, I am not worthy of being human. Soft breaths rippled through the air like wind over water. They called me a traitor. Held me without charges, without a lawyer, with no one knowing where I was. Not because I lied, but because I dared to tell the truth. After her testimony, 17 survivors came forward, some trembling, some crying. Some were unable to speak after their vocal cords had been severed during experimentation. Farah, now sitting upright, eyes wide, clutched a crayon drawing in her hands, a woman in uniform cradling a child on a red background. She told me Farah said that even without power, we can still save people. We have to try. After the hearing, the U.S. delegation retreated to a private chamber. International media erupted. Headlines scrolled, "Former SEAL exposes war crimes backed by secret U.S. agencies." Black Forge Ghost Protocol and the Kill to Silence policy unveiled in Geneva. The rise of Amara Collins as a global symbol of military ethics. In Washington, Director Evelyn Krell was intercepted at the airport attempting to flee with a diplomatic passport. Senator Rourke resigned amid voter outrage and an FBI investigation. Black Forge CEO Mitchell Drake was arrested in Switzerland, where no law shields crimes committed in the name of national security. A week later in Arlington, Amara stood among old headstones as autumn leaves fell. She placed a small stone on each grave of comrades lost in that mission, a SEAL tradition. "They asked if I wanted another medal," she whispered. "I told them give it to the ones who died silent. I lived because I spoke." Behind her, Camille approached. "They're naming a new international resolution after you," she said. "The Briggs Protocol." Amara shook her head. "Don't put my name on paper. Put it in stories. Because one day another girl will stand at the crossroads of duty and conscience. And I want her to remember, someone once chose not to be silent." 3 months after the Geneva hearing, the world had changed not with explosions, but with gavel strikes in committees, signatures on petitions, and testimonies that could not be unspoken. The Briggs Protocol, an international agreement on transparency and ethics in military operations, was passed unanimously at the United Nations. Member states were now required to disclose extra-legal detention sites publicly and to ban all biological testing on civilians. Amara Collins, once branded a traitor, had become one of the architects of modern military ethics. But she claimed no titles, did not run for office, did not open social media accounts. She returned to the training base in North Carolina, where recruits learned to shoot and for the first time to think. One September morning during a class on humanitarian intervention rules, a young soldier asked, "If you could go back to that night, would you do anything differently?" Amara looked him straight in the eye, the same gaze she had when holding a rifle. "I could change everything except my decision to walk into that room. They said I'd survive if I turned away. But I looked into the eyes of a child being poisoned and knew survival isn't always victory. Sometimes, living right is the real win." That evening, Amara sat alone in her small apartment. Papers neatly stacked. No screens, no noise. She opened an envelope. No return name. Postmarked from Montreal. Inside was a hand-drawn picture. Crayon colors. A sketch of her holding Farah golden stars falling behind. A note in crooked handwriting. "My name is Farah. You saved me that year. I'm 10 now. My mom says heroes don't wear capes, they wear scars. I want to grow up like you. Never quiet when something wrong happens." Amara placed the drawing on her shelf. Right beside the medal she refused and the old photo of her SEAL team. She closed her eyes, took a breath. For the first time, no longer caught between two selves, soldier and black woman who defied orders. She was just herself, someone who didn't stay silent and no longer needed permission to speak. Days later, at a global summit on military ethics, Amara was invited to speak before more than 100 nations. She took the podium. No cue cards, no headset mic. Just a voice once strangled, now returned to its rightful owner. 2 years ago, I was bound detained and called a traitor for saving a child. They said I broke orders. But I only broke the silence they built to protect their privilege. I'm not here for applause. I'm here because some can no longer stand. They cannot speak. They are unnamed, but I carry them in this voice. She scanned the room. Her gaze landed on Camille Hart, on Fair Nazari, on Eli Chen. 3 people who never needed orders to do the right thing. Justice is not mercy from above. It is action from below. And truth once spoken needs no permission to exist. After her speech, no one clapped immediately, because they were stunned. Then, a single clap rang out from a young girl in the front row wearing a T-shirt with Amara's image gifted by a refugee community. It was followed by a chorus of applause from survivors and those who had once remained silent. That night, Amara visited the military cemetery once more. She placed a small stone on an unnamed grave, then whispered, "I've told it now. They're listening." She turned away and walked, not in a rush, because this time she wasn't running from anything. When truth is chained in the name of security, courage is the first key. Do you dare speak, even when no one permits you?